is it do you think that this reconciliation bill is going to be, and how quickly can the Senate move?
Well, I hope very narrow and focused. That was the objective at the beginning.
Do you think it needs to be offset? Will there be defense funding as well?
Well, I think right now the goal is to keep it very narrow, very focused, because anytime you bring in other issues, you implicate other committees of jurisdiction, which under the budget reconciliation rules, as you know, in the Senate, gets way more complicated.
Senate Majority Leader John Thune telling reporters that Republicans are going to try to keep the GOP-only bill funding border security operations as narrow as possible so they can meet President Trump's June 1st deadline to pass it. But House conservatives reportedly are expressing frustration over the new plan during a conference call yesterday. Sources telling Fox News they're not willing to vote for anything defunding law enforcement. President Trump, meanwhile, announcing he will sign an order to pay all DHS employees while granting workers a 30-day tax filing extension. TSA call-outs are down more than 40% at major airports, but there's new troubles brewing at FEMA as it's warning the disaster fund is running dangerously low ahead of hurricane and wildfire seasons and major U.S. events like America 250 and the FIFA World Cup. I want to bring in Texas Congressman Chip Roy. Congressman, good morning. So, the House is going to convene for this pro forma session Monday, but the bill isn't expected to see a full vote until April 13th. Are you part of this group that is resisting this two-step approach? And also, were you on that call yesterday?
Well, good morning, Cheryl. I wasn't able to make the call yesterday because I had a commitment here in Texas. As you know, I think I'm running for a Texas Attorney General. So I had a couple of events yesterday morning, but I got a download of what happened on the call. I was getting updates in real time, text messages from all my colleagues. The call lasted about 2.5 hours. Look, let's be very clear. We stand firmly behind the president, behind Russ Vought, Office of Management and Budget, all the leadership of the administration that want to get this done and get things funded so that we can overcome Democrats' obstruction. The Democrats refuse to fund ICE and Border Patrol. They're holding America hostage. Republicans are united in that desire. Where we disagree is how we operate. And right now, the Senate has obviously not gotten a lot of things passed that the House has gotten done. We've sent full DHS funding over 4 times. We think the Senate ought to fund the entirety of the Department of Homeland Security. My position is pretty simple. I have no interest in isolating ICE and Border Patrol. I don't want to do that either in an appropriations bill or even if we use reconciliation. I think we need to move an entire funding package of DHS. And if we have to use reconciliation to do it, to beat Democrats, then let's get busy doing it. I don't want any excuses about committee jurisdiction or how long it will take. We can do anything we want by rule and with will. So let's send a message to ICE and Border Patrol and to the entire country that we stand behind them. It was the #1 thing the president ran on. The president's doing his job. We should do ours.
Yeah, well, and I want you to listen to Senator Ron Johnson on this issue. He was on with Maria yesterday. Here's what he told Maria about how this is all going to play out. Listen.
I think this is the only thing, unfortunately, that we can do with the Democrats being so obnoxiously obstructionist in terms of funding the very agency that we need to keep us safe after they threw open our borders. So this is what we have to do. In terms of the second step, the reconciliation, I think we need to keep that as narrow and as focused as possible, or that could potentially get out of control as well.
What else goes in the reconciliation then?
I would want to fund all of Republican priorities within DHS, which is pretty much all of DHS, through fiscal year 2029. That's what I've been talking about. That's what I'll be pressing for. Again, we can't allow Democrats to use the security of our nation, of our homeland, as a bargaining chip.
Congressman, your response to that?
Well, first of all, Ron Johnson is a good friend. We work together, and we've been texting and talking about this very issue over the last week. And, I don't know that we're that far apart. My position is let's send, and by the way, I think it's kind of narrow and focused if we focus on DHS only. The House should convene. We should get together. We should send DHS fully funded through reconciliation to the Senate. Then just get it done, move it quickly. And now we've no longer split off ICE and Border Patrol. We've no longer sent a message that we're not going to continue the priority of securing America. President Trump ran on it. We ran on it. President Trump is delivering on it. So Congress should too. That's what I think we can do to actually get on offense and demonstrate to the American people it's Democrats that are endangering them. It's Democrats that are holding America hostage so that they can play political points, trying to get some sort of statement on ICE and Border Patrol where they side with the illegal aliens, they side with the people endangering us rather than siding with the American people.
All right. So, Congressman, we're going to be watching that. Obviously, I want to get your take on the big news of the morning, and this is Pam Bondi. She's out as Attorney General after 1 year leading the Justice Department. Deputy AG Todd Blanche is going to serve as acting AG until her replacement is named. President confirmed it on True Social. He said, "We love Pam, and she's going to be transitioning to a much-needed, important new job at the private sector to be announced in a date in the near future." She posted that, quote, "Leading President Trump's historic and highly successful efforts to make America safer and more secure has been the honor of a lifetime and easily the most consequential first year of the Department of Justice in American history." Congressman, you're urging the president to replace Bondi with an aggressive AG. Who do you want to see in this role?
Well, I don't work for the president's, personnel department. I'm not going to tell you what I think he should do. What I am going to do is say, first, Pam Bondi did a great job in a number of different fronts and going after bad guys and elevating the need to get back on offense to put bad guys in jail. I just think right now where the president is saying, look, we've got a lot of things we've got to do to restore accountability and achieve justice. We have a lot of things the American people expected us to deliver on. By us, I mean the entire administration and Congress, in terms of the things that the Democrats have been doing targeting us, right? They weaponize the Department of Justice against the people. We've got to deal with things like Antifa. The president rightly declared them a terrorist organization. We want to see people who are affiliated with these Marxist networks funding Antifa, creating all sorts of danger for the American people. We want them held accountable. We want the people who are harassing J6ers held accountable. We want to know the truth on Arctic Frost. My records were targeted under Arctic Frost, Jack Smith. We want to see heads roll. Okay. We want to see John Brennan, who the Judiciary Committee referred to the Department of Justice, held accountable, and Jim Comey. Like, these are all things that we think need to happen. The next Attorney General needs to be very aggressive, and I hope the president will pick somebody who will do that. And I've been working with Todd Blanche, and I look forward to working with him in the interim.
Okay. Well, certainly there is a lot at stake, and certainly some of the issues that you brought up are things that we know President Trump wants to see happen, and maybe Pam Bondi wasn't the right person to get those accomplishments done. Do want to ask you about this. This is very important, especially considering the state that you are in, which is Texas. The president did attend the Supreme Court's oral argument on birthright citizenship this week. This is the first time a sitting president has done so, to be in that room, right? Well, back in December, the Wall Street Journal reported that nearly 41% of international surrogate parents are Chinese, and one Chinese billionaire potentially has got 100 U.S.-born children through surrogacy. Congressman, your letter to the Trump administration on China-linked birth tourism was mentioned during those arguments. I want to get your take on that, sir.
Well, this has been an issue that's been important to me for a long time. The first hearing I held as the chairman of the subcommittee on the Constitution last year was on this topic. We had Chuck Cooper testify, who's one of the best appellate lawyers. We submitted an amicus brief, talking about the phrasing in the 14th Amendment, subject to the jurisdiction thereof. The idea that if you take the Supreme Court justices questioning that give me pause for concern, Amy Coney Barrett, even Justice Gorsuch, Chief Justice Roberts' questions were very concerning. If you take the direction they seem to be going to the logical conclusion, then if 20 million Chinese communist mothers show up tomorrow, pregnant, and have babies tomorrow, do we suddenly have 20 million new American citizens that are, Chinese communist people that are coming here to the country to become American citizens. That's insane. There's no reason that someone would believe the 14th Amendment would suggest that. The 14th Amendment was meant to deal with slavery in this particular subject area. We all know that. History indicates that. So I hope that the Supreme Court will get it right. The questions that they asked were very concerning when they're talking about domicile and how they're handling the questions. But I remain hopeful. I really appreciate the president's leadership on this. His executive order was perfectly constitutional. And obviously, Congress should be acting, by the way, to back up the president. I co-sponsor legislation to address this. We should pass it. It's absurd that we're allowing this to happen because it's endangering the American people in the process.
Well, and it happens a lot in Texas. Last word, Congressman.
Well, this is something that is affecting us directly in Texas, as you point out, with people who come across the river, people who come into our state, and they use our hospitals and they try to become American citizens wrongly. That's not what the 14th Amendment means. As Attorney General of Texas, I can promise you I'm going to fight this no matter what. As I said, I'm running for it. Would appreciate anybody's support out there, chiproy.com. But as Attorney General, I will stand up and fight no matter what the Supreme Court does.
It's a very important issue to your constituents as well as many in the nation. Congressman Chip Roy, thank you so much for being here. We hope you have a wonderful Easter weekend.
Happy Easter.
All right, thank you, Congressman Chip Roy from Texas.